Hello YouTube! Welcome back to Urban Rivals, and today we're going to be taking a look at the newest Coliseum that was announced. Now, for you who don't know what Coliseum is, it's actually a special game mode that comes every so often, and it has special deck building rules. So let's take a look, for example, at this Coliseum's rules. First of all, in your deck you'll need at least one Noel card, no staff band EFC cards, no duplicates, no 1-star card, and a maximum of 24 stars. Now you might say, well, that's kinda unfair, you know? Some EFC cards or some Noel cards are better than others, but don't worry about that because staff buffed a lot of the weaker Noel cards, and we're actually gonna take a look at them right now. So I'm gonna rank these cards, actually going from A basically being, okay, you have to have at least one of these in your deck. B is like, I mean, they do their job, but nothing too crazy. C and D is mostly like, yeah, there's just better cards in the clan to play, you know? Like, you don't want to play these cards. And F is, I think these cards are either too clunky or too weak to see play. So, let's go down the row one by one. Starting off with Lola Noel. I gave Lola Noel a C card. Now you might think, yo, that is crazy, you know? It's just a 9/5 with protection, power, and damage. But the way I look at it is that there's already Sylvia that exists in the deck. There is Pedro. There's, hell, you could even play Granny May 3 stars instead. So I don't really see the value of Lola Noel. I mean, she's a good card, but I wouldn't necessarily build my deck around it. Kurkan Noel. Kurkan Noel is a very, very fun card. So went from 5/4 to 4/5. And I think Kurkan Noel is actually really good. Mainly because the other Cosmo cards can do 7 damage. That means that Kurkan can Fury with them. And later on I'm going to showcase a fun deck with him. So stick with us for a bit. Next up, Olga Noel. I gave Olga the D rank. I just don't think Freaks is that good right now, even in this Coliseum. And I don't think Olga Noel will help them, especially when Olga Collector is probably better. They even have their Legendary card, which could be better. They just have better 3 stars overall. And I think that Freaks aren't that strong right now, so that's why I gave Freaks a rank of D. Although I might be mistaken, since this format is 24 stars, the Freaks bonus becomes slightly better since opponent has less stars to play with. Next up, Brampa Noel. I think this F is self-explanatory, but I just don't think the card is good, you know? 8/1 minus 2 pills and life. It's not anything too special, you know? We've seen better cards in Frozen. And Frozen also is a very hard clan to play, since their bonus is so conditional. So I wouldn't play Frozen if I were you, or if you are playing Frozen, I wouldn't play Brampa Noel. Next up, Poppy Marie Noel. I gave Poppy Marie Noel a B because it's just good stats, you know? Like, it's a 9/5, and definitely I'd play it during the day. But it's a 9/5, but if you remember in the rules said no staff banned cards from EFC. This means that cards banned by the players are still allowed, notably Gunslinger is allowed, so, or Miss Gunslinger. So that is something you could take a look into, could be good. They also have Miss Calamity, they have the 9/2 SOA, they have a lot of good cards, and I think Poppy Marie Noel would fit great in there. Then we have, on the Hive side, Un Noel. Un is a 6/3, minus 2 damage, minimum 0. Had this been minimum 2, I would be like, okay, maybe Un is like a B or a C, but the minimum 0 really puts it over the top, and decent stats as well. You won't be too mad doing 3 damage. But yeah, just minus 2 damage, minimum 0 is very, very good. Next to Un, we have another card which I decided to give the ranking of A, and that is Rhythm Noel. And that's just mainly Rhythm Noel is banned from EFC for good reasons. It's a very solid body, 8/4 with protection, power, and damage. And opposite to Lola Noel, who is a 9/5 or a 9/3 with protection, power, and damage. First of all, Rhythm does the same amount of damage, but the Komboka don't have that many good 3 stars. So that's why I think Rhythm just fits much better in there. Next up, we have Tyrese Noel, and honestly, I think Tyrese might be tied for the best out of all of these Noel cards. It's just a 5/5 with power and damage exchange. Usually is gonna win the round. Oblivion bonus could be interesting here. But yeah, I think if you want to build a deck, you'll have to think about Oblivion, and you'll have to think that Tyrese is a threat. So just gotta keep that in mind. I think it's a very good card, and I think people will be playing Tyrese Noel. Next up, we have Doella. I'm kind of dissatisfied with Doella. I think before the change, he was a bit stronger with Symmetry -4 opponent life, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, and I think that was simply better than what he is right now. I mean, sure, you will be going second if you're playing Doella Noel more often than not, and she could be an 8/7, but that's it. That's about it. Like, loses to damage reduction, and again, Paradox is a hard deck to play with, so I just don't think Doella Noel is the card you want to be playing. Hawkins Noel, he doesn't really bring anything to the Piranha clan. Piranhas are already a deck that have a hard time doing damage, and Hawkins sure is going to give you probably like 2 to 3 extra pills to play with, but Hawkins does have like low power, which means he will invest those pills to get them back. Now, I could see the case that they have the Ursula, which is currently banned by the players, if I'm not mistaken, but you could play Ursula, but I just don't think Piranha has what it needs in this event. Then we have another card that's CFC banned, and that is Clover Noel. And I think Clover is tied with Tyrese for the best Noel cards in this bunch, because it just does so much. Like, it's going to give you back 4 life. 4 life is a lot in a 14 life format. That's almost 1/3 of your life, giving you on defeat +2 life and a 2 damage reduction. Plus, Pussycats also have access to Lucy, so that's something very important to remember. And they're probably just going to be the best defensive clan we have in the Coliseum right now. Next to Clover Noel, we have Lucky Noel. Lucky, I just don't think sees play. Where Doella Noel is an 8/7 on Reprisal, Lucky is an 8/6 on Courage. Courage is more difficult to happen. Also, Lucky has a minimum of 5, which is really, really high, so I wouldn't recommend you play Lucky Noel, but you can try it if you want. Then Kenji Noel, I gave it a rank of C because it's a middle card, you know, nothing too crazy. 6/3 +12 attack. I don't think it's that strong, I don't think it's that weak, but it's just the middle of the pack and it doesn't do anything special, so I put it at C. Then we have Egg One Noel. I gave Egg One an F, and this might surprise a lot of you, but my reasoning is that Egg One Noel is just very clunky, A, and B, it's also a Courage card. Like, your opponents are probably going to be running damage reduction, and what does Egg One do into that, you know? They're going to have to do very low damage or just play without an ability. Now, there is the Knight version that has Courage -4 power, minimum 2, but I also think that skills just have better 4-star to play with. And in a 24-star format, Egg One Noel having 4 stars is just way too clunky, so that's why I gave him a ranking of F. And finally, Gaia Noel, which is basically Christie and Uluwatu. But the problem with Gaia Noel is that you have Shell, you have Eugene, you have Nystrom, which are really, really good 3 stars for Uluwatu. So she's gonna have a rough time to fit in, but if you can fit her in, she's gonna pull her own weight. And yeah, that's basically all the ranking I gave to these cards. Let me know in the comments if you disagree with something or you think something should be different. But yeah, now let's take a look at some decks I came up with. Okay, so for deck number 1, I reminded you that only the staff banned cards from EFC are not allowed in this event, which means Todor is still allowed in this Coliseum, Zalindra is still allowed in this Coliseum, and these 2 cards really make Zenith shine. So I wanted to play these 2 cards, although Todor got nerfed recently. I think the 7/5, like the potential of doing 8 gap, is still very, very good, especially with that ability. I wanted to play 4 Zeniths, so I'm playing the new Tiwi, which I think is also very powerful. And along them, I wanted to play a Noel card since obviously Zenith don't have a Noel card, so I looked at the Oculus and I decided to settle on Komboka. Komboka having access to Rhythm Noel, which is a quite decent card, and they also have access to Kupanda for the stop bonus, which could be good in this Coliseum. Betul, overall great card, and I wanted to test out Dark Dahlia as well, which seems pretty good here. And 8-5 defeat -1 pill. Reducing the pills of your opponent is going to help your Zenith later on, so I think this deck just has good stats and should perform quite well. Next deck we're going to be taking a look at is a deck I featured recently on this channel, which was Pussycat Berserk, except now we have access to Clover Noel. And yeah, I think Clover Noel just puts this deck over the top. You have Clover, you have Lucy, two very, very good defensive cards. Pair that up with Conrad, Mispool, two very good offensive cards, Pedro for the SOA, Chang for the damage and power reduction, Lois in case you lose, which is probably gonna happen since you have Clover and Lucy, and I think you have yourself a very strong deck. So this is, I think, a sleeper deck, and I think a deck people should take a look at. I think it's gonna be quite powerful if, of course, you don't run into too much protection power and damage. And one more deck we're going to showcase here is Hive Oblivion. I just thought that I wanted to play Tyrese Noel. It's if you saw my rankings, I gave him a ranking of A. I also gave Un Noel a ranking of A. So I wanted to play these two cards together, and Dark Dakota was the card that glues Hive and Oblivion together. And because you're playing so many 2-stars in Un Noel, in Tyrese Noel, and Dark Dakota, that means you can run 3 4-stars in the form of Lumia, Core, and X3, and I think these 3 4-star are just gonna be what you need for the offense. And now, since the Hive have an attack reduction bonus, it's also gonna help Furman get a kill shot potentially. Ashara, I don't think is the best card here. I mean, there is the Riots and Hive potential, but most of the time Ashara is just gonna be a 9-4, so still solid stats, but I think this deck should also perform well. Finally, the last deck I want to take a look at is Mono Cosmo, or almost Mono Cosmo. So remember how I said Korkan Noel doing 5 damage is great? Well, Obil does 7 damage, Sam and Remy does 7 damage, Lucien does 7 damage, Darren does potentially 5 to 6 damage, you know? Faloui does 7 damage, so all of these cards do 7 damage, and with a Fury from Korkan, that's already a KO. But you also have Wild. If you don't want a Fury on Korkan Noel, you have Wild, which gives you defeat -2, opponent life minimum 0. I don't think this is the best deck from all the decks I've showcased, but I think it's going to be a very fun one. And Barshas here is really a filler card, just an 8-7 in case you need the life, in case your opponent has life gain. Still a 7 gap card. So you guys could test out this deck. So yeah, everyone, that's about it for now. Let me know what you think of the decks, let me know what you think of my rankings down in the comments, and let me know how well you perform in Coliseum, because they have good rewards, and I will probably be posting my journey in the Coliseum in later videos, so feel free to subscribe if you want to check out my progress. But for now, I'll leave you at it, and good luck in Urban Rivals. Bye bye.